I'm pretty sure almost all of you are familiar with r/place. This is what we see on screen right now. And if we check out the official Wikipedia page, r/place is essentially a collaborative project happening on Reddit and occurred, as of today, 3 times in 2017, 22, and 23. I never myself participated, but I always was super intrigued of what was actually happening in the background, on the technical side. And so I wondered, maybe I can recreate that myself. And this is what we're going to talk about today. So I am a software engineer on the day-to-day, but I always like to have a side project going on. It was always the case. I assume it's always going to be, because to me, this is the best way to just progress at whatever you were doing. And the big thing I wanted to look into was enterprise level architecture. Big quotes on that. What I mean by that is, before, when doing projects, this is usually the small scope I was usually working on. And if you want to be honest, honestly, only that one. Just the front end, the back end, maybe pinging a few APIs. But when you work for companies, there are many things that are way bigger beyond those. You can have CI/CD pipe-like things, everything related to DevOps, the deployment, the different stages you have to go through. There is just way more than just an end user using a front end on the browser. And so this was my big goal for this project. Essentially, try to use as many enterprise level toolings in architectures and trying to learn new things from there. And at the very end, I made a YouTube short about that. You can watch it. It's pretty fun. I came up with this architecture. And very obviously, I did not have that from the get-go. This was just constructed over time as I came up with the ideas. So before jumping headfirst into the code, the first thing I needed was just a plan, right? And this is what I usually like to do. This is my blurb. I obviously cleaned it a tiny bit for this video, but this is what I imagined. A user arrives on a homepage where you see the actual live board. The board is that pixel thing that you see on r/place. The user can decide to add a color, but to do that, you have to connect. Well, when I mean connect, log in. And to do that, you can authenticate with X, GitHub, or Google, and then you can actually interact with the grid and add your pixel. I also had an idea to maybe implement a 3D map in Babylon.js, but you'll see, I already had plenty of new things I needed to learn to make all of this sort of thing work. So yeah, that was just enough. And these were the list of pages I imagined I would need. And so from there, now that we have a simple feature list, we can directly jump into mocking up a few ideas. And this is what I came up with. I obviously did not implement everything that we see around here, but this was the idea. So with the grid in the middle, a timer at the very bottom because you can only add 1 pixel every 5 minutes, and a few things down there, some to zoom in, move out, add pixel, and when you have that, you have those sliding cards, and pretty basic stuff. And also, we have to think about our mobile users, right? Try to stay professional around here. Also, I am not a designer. You can clearly see that on my skincare routine. But for this project, honestly, I was pretty happy with what I came up with. It was also my first time actually following a design system. I went with the Material Design 3. If you're a Figma person like me, this is a really nice kit you can use. It teaches you a bunch of things about UX and typography and so on, and spacing in general. But following this was super easy and also did teach me stuff, which is, once again, the primary goal of these silly, over-engineered, mentally life-threatening projects. Learning. So yeah, this is what I had. And with that, I could say I was almost ready to start coding. But one big thing we can talk about, which is to me the devil of software engineering, is project setup. There was many things I knew I needed to go through, and so I needed to have a good base. Something I never was a big fan of, but that came very useful in this project is Docker. I obviously used it in the different companies I worked with, but I never was the one setting it up. I knew what it was, I knew how it works, I knew how to get inside a container, but I don't know, I always was like almost scared of starting a Docker project. Until that one. So I forced myself to push through reading a little bit about it, and I found this article, and literally, Docker isn't as difficult as I thought it was, literally. And if you are ever hesitating to use it on your project, just do. It's pretty sick. Just why using it also? If you don't know Docker, Docker is a containerizing solution to essentially have, if you want a virtual machine running your software. For sure, someone is going to scream at me in the comments what I just said, but it's essentially what it is, right? And so because of that, if you work on your project on different machines or want to deploy it in different servers, the only thing you need is actually Docker, and then you can pull images of what you're actually working on and run it on that quote unquote virtual machine. And for my project, let me just come back on this and pull this up. This is just way too much. But I had 3 Docker containers, one for the frontend, backend, and database, all joined by Docker Compose. Essentially, all of these 3 different services communicate by exposing different ports, and you can communicate between them. Yeah, this is just the simple setup of my application. On paper, very basic, but setting it up all by hand from scratch, I really loved this part of the project, when usually I just hate setup. But that was fun. So now let's talk about backend. One of the big things also I wanted to do on this project is learn a new language. And so I went with Go. When I say learn, I mean touching something to actually put it on production. I did not learn everything about Go. I also am currently listening to the Lex Friedman Primogen podcast. If you haven't, please do. The Primogen said that if you want to learn an actual coding language, just read the entire library, like the documentation, and then you will start to understand it. I did not do that. So I cannot pretend, I am an expert at Go now. I just know enough to implement things. And I did also use it professionally. But now I would assume, if there is something to implement with Go, I wouldn't have any problem doing it. So that was also one of the goals. Also, just because Go is slowly becoming, in my opinion, from what I see, a big industry standard when it comes to back-end development. And also so simple. And also it's a typed language, but somehow it felt as smooth as JavaScript or Python. Maybe this is going a little far. But if you are just right now starting with Go, you would understand what I'm meaning right now. It's just so smooth to work with. I don't have any other way to describe it. It's pretty nice. And so, in my actual code base, this is where everything would be with the backend. I did use Gin, the framework, but now looking back, I think I would have just been able to use the standard Go library. But it made just everything so much easier. So now we can talk a little bit about the database. Just went with a basic Postgres. Again, industry standards, so easy to put in place. Just pull an image from Docker. Pretty simple. And from that, to communicate between database and backend, I went with Go, which is a no ORM. There you go, that's what I'm talking about. So this essentially took care of everything I needed to do on the database. I didn't have to touch that much SQL. So that created my tables and everything. And I just had to declare a couple of models directly in my Go application. So here we can see the users. This doesn't have everything like email or whatever. We'll talk about that soon. The pixel data, where is it? How many times it changed, and the user ID related to it. And I kept a table of last contribution because of all of the timing happening, etc., etc. And with just that setup, you have a really basic database that's happening. So now, for the users, I did not handle everything by myself. One of the main things also I wanted to learn for this project was social login. So essentially the one-click being able to log in with GitHub, X, or Google. And at the beginning, I was like, maybe I can implement the OAuth 2.0 Google API by myself and it will be easy. Turns out it's a nightmare. It's terrible. You have so many things to just, first of all, understand the documentation, but so many things to keep track of between the different JWTs, the protocols, the permissions. There are many, many things that are going on. And maybe I thought there is no way this is a one-man job. There is no way. So I asked around my different colleagues and I ended up on Auth0. Auth0 by now, I think, could be considered industry standard, I think, because of how easy it is to put in place. And honestly, they have this thing to directly work with your frontend, the Auth0 SPA SDK, whatever that thing displayed on my screen. And making it work was so trivial. The documentation was super helpful. The thing that was hard though, this is what I'm talking about. JWT's authorization. Let me come back on that to explain to you what I mean. If you're on the frontend, you are logged in here. This communicates with Auth0, so that's pretty easy. But then in the backend, let's say you want to retrieve your user information. To be able to do so, you don't want any user to access any other user data. You would like a way to say to the backend, hey, I am logged in, so give me my information according to this user that is currently connected on the front end. To do that, you do need the JWTs. And Auth0 manages that. You can get back from the front end the JWT and send it back with your request to get back what you actually want. That was terrible to just grasp and understand, like the different serialization of the public key, understanding what is a domain, audiences, and so on. This was super hard. And I thought for a second, I'm like, there is no way I understood everything. So I just read through the whole documentation, I think 3 times, of what JWT actually is. And I wondered, maybe I'm just missing something. But apparently there is a sort of consensus that JWTs are just a hard thing to grasp. So I was pretty happy to get that. But I managed to get it working. I think my implementation must not be this clean. In my backend, I have a classic middleware. This is the course, this is the authentication. And yeah, I just received the JWT. I parse it, then use the ready-made validator from Auth0, and then double check that. This is supposed to be pretty textbook implementation, but again, I had a really, really hard time understanding that. But if I'm making this video, this means that I was able to make it work. But yeah, this was like a good, we could say weeks to make this work. I think backend is where I spent the most amount of time, or at least it seems like, because this is where I learned the most with Go and the JWT and everything we just talked about. And also everything I'm talking about at the same time, I still need to put out fires with Docker and anything related to that. But of course, I am originally a front-end dude. This is where I started my career, and I still wanted to learn some things. And so for that on the front end, I decided to go with Svelte. I really don't have an opinion on frameworks. I don't really care, honestly. I started as a Vue dude, then became a React handy, and I was just like, I just want to see some stuff. I just want to learn it. How is this component rendered? How do you mount stuff? Where is the variable? How can I manage the state? And where is the store? You give me all of those information and I'm ready to essentially just go around the docs, understand a few things, and I'm okay. So at the end of the day, it's just preferences and how ready are you to look around the actual docs instead of Stack Overflow or just good old AIs to understand what you are asking. I'm gonna be honest, Svelte was fun. Svelte was okay. Svelte was really nice. Yeah, no comment. And of course, still, everything is obviously responsive, or at least I try to. My brain told me to not lose any much time on that because nobody was going to use it anyways. So yeah, nothing too specific for my front-end components. I can show you one right there. Basic CSS, you don't want to do no Tailwind. I did it in the past. Not my jam. It's okay if it's yours, by the way. Just cruising around the front end. The thing that's very obviously interesting is the actual grid itself in the background. This was done with good old classic Canvas API. The thing that's fun with this API is that you can do a lot of things, but there are so few abstractions that I think it takes a while to grasp, but once you have it, it's just really fun to play with. So yeah, no libraries whatsoever. The navigation was really fun to put in place, zoom in and out, deciding to create that Go style that you see right there. It was a fun problem to work with. Maybe I could have been able to do that with divs, but it just made sense to use the canvas. I don't know why. Maybe someone with great arguments could put that in the comments, but this is what I decided to go with. To actually draw the pixels though, this was one of the most fun parts, I think. So this is the Pix Canvas Manager. This is why I manage the entire canvas with the different pixels. And instead of from the backend retrieve every single pixels that exists, having a massive object and going through those, I essentially created my own data serializer. It's nothing too complicated. Let's look at it. There you go. This, for example, represents a whole map. This was just a test for me to work only on the front end. To make a long story short, each pixels is 9 characters long. You have X position, Y position, and those 3 characters right there are an hexadecimal color, but just compressed. So it gives you, I think, more than 4,000 colors, which is more than plenty for maybe 10 users. But yeah, I just created that little thing. It was pretty fun. I did something very similar on my other project. Is it even still online? Oh, fun. Yes, it is. Let me go back. Where is it? Oh, in the map sandbox. This is pretty similar to this. Zogblog is a project reference to block source. You can watch this video on my YouTube channel, by the way. So yeah, this map, when you want to test the map and send this data to the Vue.js, this uses approximately the same thing, but instead of just being position and color, here we actually keep in mind the position of each tile and what type it is. Is it a trap? Is it the start? Is it the exit? You get the idea. You can still play that game, by the way. This is at this address. Yeah, that's approximately it for the map. This was pretty fun. And Yeah, not that many chokes on my side for that thing. Oh no, yeah. One of the hard parts also to put in place was the WebSocket. I just did not want to just fetch what's happening on the backend. I also wanted to implement WebSocket so that when someone actually adds an actual pixel, you would be able to see in real time what's happening. For example, if I try to place one, you should see my name tag popping up. Yeah, there you go. And so this would actually happen on other screens with the different users actually present. Making that work, I think I did not do the cleanest job ever, but it honestly works. And that was also a big win, implementing from scratch WebSockets with Go. Once again, really easy to put in place. We can talk about workflow. Debugging was pretty straightforward for the front end. If you are front end handy just like me, just the classic console logging around, see what's happening, taking your time to understand the problems in your Z-index, nothing too fancy. For the back end though, since I wanted to understand a bit more what was happening, sometimes I just needed to go into the actual Docker container and run a few commands to see what was happening when managing different files and the database. And so for that, I just created a script that allowed me to manage all of that. This is a script to just, every time I want to check something or see that everything is changing in the database, one, for example, to get the pixels, the users, and just simply also enter the Postgres database and directly access it in my terminal. For example, we are already connected right there, and I would like to see the details of my tables. This is what I can see right there, right now. Yeah, that's it for my debugging suite. Again, a one-man job over there. So not too extensive, but enough. Now for deployment though, of course, Vercel is amazing. Everybody loves Vercel. Used it in the past. It's just magic. For enterprise level stuff though, I knew I just wanted a very simple, bare bones Linux machine somewhere and being able to SSH into it, deploy stuff, and show the ports I need accordingly. And learning the process, everything about port manipulation, the difference between HTTP and HTTPS, DNS records coming into it, and so on and so forth. Because I did do a tiny bit of this in the past, but not enough to be able to proclaim at a company or whatever, oh, hey, you can put me on that particular ticket. So I looked around. There is obviously the two big dogs, GCP and AWS, and decided to just go with AWS. And so the thing I needed, turns out, was an elastic compute cloud thingy instance. And there were multiple choices. There is a lot of things you can choose within this domain. And so this was just a bunch of trial and errors, trying to understand what I need, also not making any mistakes about what to pay and being overcharged. Spoiler alerts, this did happen. And I think this was not the most fun because it was very painful. But this was, I think, the most satisfying. Being able to see my instances being rolled out, being able to SSHing into them, and just having my code, my idea being brought to the world with an infra I actually put in place, that was sick. I would highly suggest you, if you've never done it, to slowly take the effort into knowing where to go, what to look, and reading slowly but surely documentation and understand how that works. You're going to learn so many things. So anyways, I decided to take one of these instances. And since I tried many times to roll on one, then another one, and sometimes running out of memory or whatever, I just thought that I was always repeating the same thing. Create a new instance, log into it, create a new token to be able to get my GitHub code on there, installing Docker, running Docker Compose, create the actual .env production file, so on and so forth. So I just decided to create also my own script to just roll that on a new instance every time I did a new one. That was also pretty fun. I got way better at shell scripting during this project. And once I had this actually running, there was not that many more things to do. Once that is on a server, the last thing you need is to be able to access it, right? You will not want to actually just type in a few IP numbers and at some point maybe follow my website. So I just decided to go with Cloudflare to just go by a very basic domain name. Went with the .org one. I decided to call it Pixplace. Did we talk about that? Did we talk about the name? No, we didn't do that. Jeez. So yeah, it's called Pixplace. Pixplace.org. So yeah, I bought that for very, very cheap. Just put that and pointed it to the IP address of my EC2 instance. And that should be it. Well, it wasn't. Once we receive that request, we need to then port it to the right ports inside the application. Again, that Docker Compose is just a bunch of little services communicate between one another inside the actual machine using the ports. And so for that, I just need a reverse proxy. And looking around, I just fell on Caddy. And this thing is amazing. I don't know enough about reverse proxies and web internet security to be able to tell you that this is the shit, but it feels like it. So easy to put in place. Talked about it with different colleagues as well who use it. If for whatever reason you need a reverse proxy to set up on your EC2 instance on AWS, which is very specific, go with Caddy. So easy. Get your request, put it to where you need to go, and map out whatever you need. So I just needed two, right? One for my actual client and one for my API. And that was just so easy to put in place. There you go. That's just the basic idea. One single file with my script. I just create a new instance, plop and go. And this was ready to accept everything. And the very last thing I needed and really wanted to implement by myself was a CI/CD pipeline. So again, Versal, we love you, I miss you, has everything figured out that when you push on whatever branch you decide to put in the UI, your code is being deployed automatically. Well, some things need to happen in the background, right? And so I decided to go with GitHub Actions. GitHub Actions was so surprisingly easy to put in place. So AI is very good at different things. For example, creating regex functions. This is like one of the best things you can do. It's very shitty at a lot of things, centering a div or deciding to place something in a div or whatever. Creating a YAML file to deploy your stuff in GitHub Actions, AIs are very, very, very good at that, or at least I found. Also, I have a really ultra basic setup, but that was so nice. And with that, I essentially had my entire architecture put in place. We almost talked about everything in there, right? Yeah, we did. But then you would say, Marius, I just opened a new tab, but I don't see your project. Where is it? What happened? When setting up my EC2 instance, I tried to have everything in the free tier and did do a few gods, right? And I knew that I was going to have some extra stuff I would need to pay. And I wondered maybe worst case scenario, $20 a month, right? This is a screenshot I took, I think around some time ago. I wouldn't be able to tell you when exactly. And so essentially I effed up big time somewhere and I don't know where. Because this $55 was only going up until I saw by the end of the month, by the way, you're going to pay $120 for a website that anybody used. Well, that did get a little bit of traction, don't get me wrong, but nothing that's worth $120. So I did F up something. So this is why it is down right now. We shall see how this video does, but I don't think it's going to be up anyways. You can see though some of what was happening. Yeah, there you go. This was just to show you the price only going up. So yeah, this is why it's down right now. It was becoming really costly, and I was so afraid to wake up with that $69,000 bill from Bezos that I decided, you know what, let's just kill it. Let's just do this video and let's just see where it goes from there. But this was what was actually on prod for a little while. We had approximately 40 users at one point, which was pretty nice. It was pretty sick. I never seen it actually run with more than 3 people at a time on it, but it was fun enough for it to be tweeted. Follow me, by the way, over that. So apart from this F-up I just talked about, this project was obviously really fun and taught me so many things. That was the biggest one by far. I think I say that on every single project that I do, but this one for sure was big, and I just loved it the whole way through. It was a while since I actually, wanting to get up and just work on that thing day in, day out. So yeah, this was pretty nice. So yeah, that's the overview. That's me yapping for around 40 minutes now. Damn. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. You can watch all of my other projects. Don't hesitate to tell me how you would have done it. It's always nice to exchange on different architectures and what you think about this. Thank you for watching, and I see you all very soon on the internet. Bye-bye, everyone.